Welcome to the San Francisco Public Library Commission meeting for April 16th, 2026. The time is 4:30. I'm Margot Schaub, and I serve as the Commission Affairs Analyst. This meeting is being held in person in the main library Corrett Auditorium. Members of the public can observe the meeting using Zoom by following the link in the library's event calendar or by calling 1-877-853-5247 and entering ID number 943-5680-4971. Members of the public who are attending the meeting in person may provide public comment for up to 3 minutes for each discussion or action item on the agenda. Library commissioners in attendance are President Calhoun, Vice President Jones, Commissioners Lopez, Bolander, Kennison, and Menon.
Hello? There we go. Thank you. Well, and welcome and hello to the April 16th, 2026 meeting of the San Francisco Public Library Commission. We will start with the Ramaytush Ohlone land acknowledgement. The area now known as San Francisco is the unceded ancestral homeland of the Ramaytush Ohlone peoples of the San Francisco Peninsula. As the original peoples of this land, the Ramaytush Ohlone have never ceded, lost, nor forgotten their responsibilities as caretakers of this land. We recognize that we benefit from living, working, and learning on their homeland. As uninvited guests, we affirm their sovereign rights as First Peoples and wish to pay our respects to the ancestors, elders, and relatives of the Ramaytush community. All materials for this meeting are available on the Library Commission website or at the back of the room. Today we have a total of 6 agenda items. Item number 1, we turn to general public comment. At this time, members of the public attending in person may address the Commission on items of interest within the Commission's jurisdiction, but not on today's agenda. The public can address today's agenda items when that item is called. So with that, I open general public comment.
Yes, thank you very much, Commissioners. Speaking as an anonymous citizen, of course, and stop the hate, stop the ignorance, don't give money to the Friends of the Library, don't accept money from the Friends of the Library, and there are no agendas in the back of the room. I conceive of this as a 2-part presentation, the first part today and the second part in May. So to the extent that you're following at all, the conclusion will be in May. At the last meeting, the president of this commission made a joke. He was not trying to be profound or insightful. He thought it was a little witticism with just enough of a hint of the truth to make it funny. Do you remember? He said, now we come to the favorite part of the agenda, adjournment. He's glad when he thinks it's over. Don't you know in your heart of hearts that if this were a just society, library commissioners would be looking forward to the agenda, would be looking forward to engaging with the public and engaging with people who cared about the library? Of course they would. What does it mean when the library commissioners are the ones who dread the meetings? I mentioned before that you attempt to establish your elitism by displaying your disdain for power of language because there's an aphorism which demonstrates that. The idea that you demonstrate your elitism by your disdain for the public. That aphorism operates on many levels, cannot be paraphrased, and well, the phrase is, no one hates a nigger, field nigger like a house nigger.
Jeez.
The thing, it's an aphorism that's existed for a long time.
So the legally safest course is to, your comment is off topic and I'm stopping your time. So yes.
No,
absolutely. Thank you.
This is a classic aphorism from tradition. What?
Okay. Can you turn the mic off, please? Okay.
made it so all you have to do is make the meetings possible. It would be up to you. Thank you very much.
Is there any additional public comment?
Hello, Commissioners. My name's Allison Fong. I'm a board member of the Friends of Public Library. Thank you for this opportunity. I'm just here to give you a few updates on what's happening with Friends, some really good news. First of all, we just want to congratulate the library for an incredible Night of Ideas event this past Saturday. It was a dynamic and joyful evening, showcasing the library as a space for big ideas, community, and creativity. The Friends is proud to support the night of events every year, and it was a strong engagement across programs, so thank you for that. We have a book sale block party coming up. It's our annual block party book sale. We'd love for everyone to come. It's on June 6th on 17th Street between Wisconsin and Caroline in Potrero Hill. There'll be thousands and thousands of books. The event runs from 12 to 5 p.m. And we're excited to have library readings and stop by the bookmobile, and it should be a ton of fun, so we hope everyone will come. And then lastly, we have Hamburger Eyes merch collaboration. I have it right here. Looks like this. And it's going to be on our merch store. We're excited for the exhibit that's happening in the gallery across the hall. And to celebrate, we're launching this hoodie. So they'll be available online at the SFPL store, and this is a fun way to support the library. So thank you.
Thank you. Is there any additional public comment?
Good afternoon, Jason Gibbs, retired librarian. About 3 meetings back, we had a nice presentation from the facilities director and went into the mission branch and its renovation. And I was very pleased to walk past there and see that the sculpture there by Leo Lintelli, Two Children Reading a Book, is looking better than ever. Leo Lintelli was a fairly significant part of San Francisco for a certain time. He was part of the City Beautiful movement that helped create the San Francisco Civic Center. When you go to Market Street, it's called the Path of Gold. He designed the light standards that are on that Path of Gold. He had 5 sculptures at the front of the Old Main Library representing art, literature, philosophy, science, and law. When it became an Asian art museum, the iconoclast of the Asian Art Museum and the Art Commission had it removed, and I think they're in some collector's backyard in Contra Costa County, these fine sculptures. But that brings me to the celebration of 30 years of the main library. I was here on the day that we moved in. I was part of the moving process. And one thing I remember distinctly from that time is we had a collection of LP records at the old main library. And we were given instructions by the chief of the new main library to get rid of that collection. At that time, I was supervised by a woman who was about as mild-mannered and cooperative a person you can imagine, but she was not going to have that. And so when we moved over, we brought over a LP collection, which, basically they wanted a new library and a new collection and new technology. But who would suspect now that LPs surpass CDs today? So if we had followed her idea for right-sizing, all of those long-playing records would have been in a landfill right now. Nowadays, there are genres of music that we can offer, like opera, folk music, certain kinds of jazz, things that were created before the vinyl revival that are available to the public that would have been otherwise lost. So when you think about removing collections or moving fast and doing things, you have to consider that the world changes and the values of things change. Where maybe right now e-books look like they're doing better than regular books, but you get a lot of reports of how people are returning to print and finding that they want to be disconnected. So just to plant the seed of the idea that that things are sometimes worth holding on to even when they don't seem like their time has passed. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any further public comment?
Good afternoon. Peter Warfield, Executive Director, Library Users Association, Library Users 2004 at yahoo.com, and P.O. Box 170544, San Francisco, California 94117-0544. If you want to give a fair opportunity for public comment, it seems to me that you need to listen to the person. And if you think there's something wrong with what they're saying, then I think you need to not only stop the clock, but you need to explain and give them a chance to explain what their position is on the relevancy of their comment, which I did not hear happening at the previous to last commenter. At the library, I have been talking repeatedly for more than 3 years, actually, since Frances Haugen, the whistleblower from Meta, from Facebook actually, testified at the Senate about the harms of social media. I'm not just talking about something off the top of my head. I'm talking about something you should not be doing, which is uncritically steering people to and encouraging use of social media, as in your Get Social box here on your At the Library monthly publication, and with logos of the major social media at the bottom of publicity. You used to have it on much or most of your printed publicity. You still have it in several places within ATL, like at the bottom of where the hours are shown. There have been 2 big trials, and the Wall Street Journal headline for March 26 says it all. Meta, YouTube found addictive, harmful. Subhead, California jurors say the tech companies designed their apps to cause injury to kids. I'll repeat that. California jurors say the tech companies designed their apps to cause injury to kids. There's a lot behind that. The Mercury News had a headline, Media Giants Found Guilty. And the New York Times, jury finds apps hurt young user. Meta and YouTube told to pay $6 million. There has long been extensive testimony from experts like our Surgeon General. You've left that out of my comments. You've left out Frances Haugen. You've left out President Biden warning about the problems and dangers of social media. I think you need to reconsider what the publicity is and what you're recommending, especially for young people. Thank you.
Thanks, Marco. Hello, commissioners, management team members, and assembled attendees. My name is Ruben, and I'm the circulation supervisor. I'm a circulation supervisor, a union officer, and the union representative on the library's Health and Safety Committee. First off, I would like to thank Jason for his research, diligence, and ultimately his advocacy, ensuring all future participants have 3 minutes to speak in this forum. Thank you, Jason, for your resolve. Now, I missed the March Commission meeting. That said, I thought I would share what I intended to speak to last month. I thought we'd be remiss if we didn't mark a date that was significant in March. On Friday, March 13th, 2020, Mayor Breed began the process of shutting down the city due to a health emergency, the COVID virus. And last month, I wanted to reflect on that day, Friday the 13th. It was a week after the commission meeting. 6 years later, and how our public sector workers, including a large amount of library staff, responded to the onset of the pandemic. At a time when there was so very little information about the virus, workers stood up when our city was at its neediest. Workers staffed the food bank pop-ups, which were throughout the city, distributed flyers, staffed testing sites, hotels, the COVID command center, offered translation services, contact tracing, among other things. City workers stood up to provide vital, essential services when everything else was shut down. I worked principally at the food bank pop-ups where we workers bagged groceries, distributed food, and managed lines. I chalked the lines, measuring the distance between where clients would stand to ensure the 6 feet distance was maintained. Food insecurity was very real. The desire for food to provide for one's family was an urgent need. The image that sits in my head was the day at the Cow Palace where hundreds of people came to get food. Our public service workers showed up and showed out, providing essential services, showing the right stuff. As we are in the midst of layoffs to city workers in other departments, I think it's important to underline what workers did, what public sector workers do when the chips are down. And we ask that our workforce, our public service workers, be afforded the same level of reciprocity when it comes to finding alternatives to layoffs. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any additional public comment? Hearing no further requests for general public comment, this item is now closed. Moving on to item number 2. Discussion and possible action to approve the February 12th, 2026 meeting minutes. We will open public comment on this item. As a reminder, please limit your public comment to this specific item. Public comment is now open.
Good afternoon. Thank you, commissioners. Stop the hate, stop the ignorance. Don't give money to the Friends of the Library. Don't accept money from the Friends of the Library. The first thing to observe is that this was a redraft of the minutes that were presented in March. There were any number of corrections that could have been made based on the comments at the March meeting. It was pointed out that the qualifications of the new commissioners were omitted. Those could have been included. It was pointed out that Lynn Davidson emphasized the role of labor. Peter Warfield emphasized the importance of privacy to library patrons and your negligence in not recognizing the importance of that issue. Jason Gibbs commented, completely omitted his characterization of the negligence of management, and your budget presentation included only the title of the present PowerPoint presentation. All of those corrections could have been included. In fact, nothing was included except the addition of Ruben Juarez. What it says is, Ruben Warren said additional incident reports take a lot of time and energy to create, and staff might not always report them because they have other duties and are not reflected in the data regarding safety. Well, actually, that's not as completely abusive and neglectful as it usually is, but of course it was not his point. His point was that related to a previous conversation of this being a data-driven organization, you need to take cognizant of the fact that there are all these barriers to inclusion of that data because of the burdens on staff. Making these minutes whole, it is part of a data-driven organization that there are just too many implications in the discussion. It's just important that all of these things be addressed. In fact, what we have are the exact same minutes. The only thing that's added is this one little thing from Ruben Juarez. Now, wouldn't it be nicer if you were listening to the public, incorporated the comments that the public made? I know you're bored, but as I said before, a library commissioner that cared would be a reflection of a more just society, wouldn't it? Thank you very much.
Is there any additional public comment on this item?
Peter Warfield, Executive Director, Library Users Association, Library Users 2004 at yahoo.com, and P.O. Box 170544, San Francisco, California, 94117-0544. I made considerable number of comments with respect to this set of minutes at the last meeting. I don't see any response to that in the minutes with respect to their completeness or their clarity of their point. It seems at times that there's a nice game being played where some of the words that I say are included, but the whole point is missing, or things are turned around so that they sound like things that I didn't say or imply things I didn't imply. I certainly, on item number 1, Commissioner Welcome, I welcome the new library commissioners. The way that this is stated here, hoped that they understand the value of public libraries sounds to me like I'm suggesting that they don't. I've always said, and I always have had, a high opinion of the folks on the Library Commission and at the library. I think you're all intelligent, you all have experience that varies, and think you want to have the library working well. The concerns that I have is about an independent library and one that is serving the public as well as it possibly could be. Actually, over time, quite a few of the suggestions that we have had were adopted by the library. And I could go into that. I could also say that you've got an unusually talented, experienced, and knowledgeable set of members of the public who over the years have spent years talking with you about issues that they had with what the library is doing and what they would suggest for improvements. In any case, I certainly think you understand the value of the library. I hope that we have some of the same values in mind. With respect to the so-called dangers in the library on item 2, it's not just dangers, it's that the library is affirmatively encouraging the use of toxic technology, some of which I've already explained in my previous general public comment, is now becoming more and more evident as whole nations, for example, are barring people under 16 from using social media at all. And then the court, which took the jury 9 days to carefully study and decide against the purveyors. Thank you.
Is there any further public comment on this item? Thank you. Hearing no further public comment is now closed, and we move to commission discussion and action on item number 2. Would someone like to make a motion to approve the minutes from the February commission meeting?
I make the motion to approve the minutes for February 12 to 2026.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
I second.
Thank you.
And I'll take the roll call. Commissioners, please say aye or no when I call your name. President Calhoun.
Aye.
Vice President Jones.
Aye.
Commissioner Lopez.
Aye.
Commissioner Bolander.
Aye.
Commissioner Menon.
Aye.
Commissioner Kennison.
Aye.
Thank you, commissioners. The motion passes unanimously. We now turn to item number 3, discussion and possible action to approve our March 19th, 2026 commission meeting minutes. We will now open public comment on this item. As a reminder, please limit your public comment to this specific item. Public commentary is now open.
Yes, thank you very much, Commissioners. Speaking as an anonymous citizen, of course, and stop the hate, stop the ignorance, don't give money to the Friends of the Library, don't accept money from the Friends of the Library. There is a city ordinance that states that a person speaking may supply a brief written summary of their comments, I quote, which shall, if no more than 150 words, be included in the minutes. You may have noticed at the end of the last meeting, Ms. Schaub and I made arrangements to meet on Wednesday so I could give her the citizen summary. She was not there. I left it in the office. I had to call to make sure she received them, and she said she was incapable of typing them, and could I send them to her by email? Well, there's no law that says I have to have email, But I'm on the side of cooperation, so I sent them to her in an email. Her response was that they were more than 150 words and she's entitled to reject them. I asked her how she knew they were more than 150 words and could she document that. No, she didn't know how she knew, and she was not able to document them. Well, somebody explained to her that I can approve that it's 150 words. There's thousands of ways that you can prove the word count in a statement, so she soon dropped that. But then she's decided that include and attach mean the same thing. This has come up before to a library commission and been sent to the Sunshine Task Force. You should go to an educated person you know. Ask them if include and not a part of mean the same thing. Ask them if include and attached mean the same thing. If they agree that that's the meaning, you were wrong about them being an educated person. This is beyond preposterous. Not only does she not know how to count the words, she doesn't know what include means. She doesn't know how to do anything with respect to this. Well, you know, if you go around yawning at me while I'm talking, you know, you can't very well claim that you're serious. It's just one lie after another. It's more than 150 words, and it's not included. And, you know, maybe she would have claimed she didn't get them. I don't know. The levels of lies that you've become a part of is, as I say, beyond preposterous. Thank you very much.
Is there any additional public comment? Thank you. Hearing no further requests for public.
Oh, Jason Gibbs,
Oh,
retired librarian. One small thing, page 2, under agenda item number 3, it offers that another speaker offered an extended reflection. I was another speaker. I have a name. So if I ask that you put my name there in the corrected public comment. And then I have to turn to the issue of what Mr. Chafee just spoke of, that the Sunshine Task Force ordinance allows members of the public to supply their own 150 words to represent their public comment. And I did so, and but it is, again, attached, not included. It is an addendum. It should be in the context of where I stated it, which was within public comment, as opposed to any other area. The Sunshine Task Force has already ruled on this sort of thing. The reason that I had this statement at all was because I was addressing an irregularity, or more accurately, an illegality of the way the commission was acting. And I have to say, I'm disappointed that I was kind of shaking when I was talking to you, because it was more out of outrage that I had to go through all this to get you to obey the law. But I don't know what it was, because I told you weren't obeying the law. So I had to miss an orchestral rehearsal to go to the Sunshine Task Force Ordinance Committee in order to get this addressed. Well, I'll do it again. Where I have comments in an addendum, it's not an addendum. It is my public testimony. I actually softened it a bit from what I said in public. Maybe I should be tougher, I don't know. But I asked, and the other thing is, it is not part of the body's official minutes, nor does the body vouch for the accuracy. Can you vouch for the accuracy of anything else in this? I mean, you don't put any disclaimer on anything else. What I'm saying now, you can't vouch for the accuracy of. So I request that you do this so that I do not have to go to another meeting of the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force in order to ask you to do the right thing again. I really don't like putting myself through it or putting you through it. Thank you.
is there any additional public comment?
Peter Warfield, Executive Director, Library Users Association, Library Users 2004 at yahoo.com, and P.O. Box 170544, San Francisco, California 94117-0544. And I'm thinking I may have said the email address incorrectly. In all cases, it's libraryusers2004@protonmail.com, and I see from the smile on City Librarian's face that he noticed it too. That's our current correct email address, which I'd like you to apply to all of our references to email address. With respect to these minutes, in some respects, they're actually better than previous examples. But rather than go into particulars in any extensive way, because I have comments about the so-called, your so-called addendum. I think that this is a game that you're playing with respect to making meaningless or invisible public comment. You've got the meeting adjourned at 6:37, and then you have addendum. Anybody reading those minutes might think, addendum for what? Addendum about what? Why should I read an addendum about the minutes when I've already read the minutes and the minutes tell me the meeting adjourned at 6:37? Then what you've done is you've made a hash out of the anonymous citizens' comments by not giving them any connection to the specifics that this person was commenting about. Is it which item? What's the subject? There's no indication in the third and fourth paragraph and the fifth paragraph, which contain his comments, what item is this about? And the very simple thing, which you have actually done in the past, also as a result of decisions of the Sunshine Task Force some years ago, was to simply say that the speaker provided his or her own summary of what he said, and then you have what the speaker said. In particular, that was Ray Hart's. Simple enough, and it makes sense. To have it at the end, disconnected from anything, is an invitation for it to be ignored and not understood. It's a puzzle. With respect to my comments on item 2, once again, I was concerned about the library's uncritical promotion of social media, not just general social media problems. And the same in another item. Thank you. And I'd like the corrections.
Is there any additional public comment? Thank you. Hearing none, public comment is now closed, and we move to commission discussion and action on item number 3. Could someone please make a motion to approve the minutes of the March meeting?
I make a motion to approve the minutes from the March meeting.
Thank you, Commissioner.
I would like to make, I get second, but I'd like to make an update to page 2 where it says another speaker and update that name to Jason Gibbs.
Can I get a revised motion, please? With the change?
I second.
Okay, I'll take the roll call. Commissioners, please say aye or no when I call your name. President Calhoun,
Aye.
Vice President Jones,
Aye.
Commissioner Lopez,
Aye.
Commissioner Bolander,
Aye.
Commissioner Menon,
Aye.
Commissioner Keniston.
Aye.
Thank you all very much. The motion passes unanimously. And now we move on to item number 4, the discussion of the media analyst's report. And I turn this meeting over to our city librarian.
Thank you, President Calhoun. Good evening, library commissioners, library staff. Appreciate the opportunity to present media coverage analysis of calendar year 2025 and some early returns for 2026. This new effort from our communications unit to track and analyze media coverage has been spearheaded by our newly promoted public information officer, Pacholo Carci Cruz, a subject matter expert in the meltwater media intelligence application. We're excited about the results of this year one pilot and the new insights we now have at our disposal as we strive to increase awareness about the positive contributions the library is making to improve quality of life in the city. Pacholo is here to provide this presentation. Pacholo, take it away. And we also have Jamie Wong, our Director of Communications, here in support.
Thanks so much for the introduction, Michael, and good afternoon, Commissioners. As mentioned, my name is Pacholo Carci-Cruz. I'm the Public Information Officer here at the library, and I'm excited to present our first SFPL media coverage analysis. So this is basically a comprehensive overview of the library's news coverage throughout the entirety of 2025. Next slide, please. So over the course of the last year, the public affairs team has gathered data that allows us to objectively see what elements of our storytelling are resonating and which elements are needed to shed a brighter light on some of our more underappreciated services. There are really three key areas here for public relations, the first being paid media, which is advertising and online content that we sponsor, owned media, which is the content we produce on our website and our socials, and earned media, which is independent coverage that comes from presenting a story that captures the attention of news publications. Earned media is the area in which this analysis will really help us shine. So a compelling story means positive awareness, and positive awareness means more library usage, which includes our services, our programs, our e-resources, and many of our other offerings. And the subjects that we derive these insights from to help support us with this includes the amount of SFPL news coverage last year, our news coverage highlights, areas of interest that we've noticed with reporters and their coverage of late, marketing-generated news coverage, coverage of our cultural amplifier or CAMP groups, and the news presence of each of the Vision 2030 strategic priorities. Next slide, please. So based on our data, the public affairs team has pinpointed three major themes in SFPL's news coverage throughout 2025, the first being that library love is a spectrum. So in terms of the common perception of a library, definitely many still have what we'd call an outdated image, the idea of a place that's very quiet and strict and silent, but we've noticed that when people are confronted with the image and that image is broken, we really engage new audiences. So for example, exhibitions like Skateboarding San Francisco and Living Tattoo Traditions, American Irizumi and Beyond, some of the archival punk content that we have in our collections, which were featured both in coverage and social media, really brought a lot of attention. Even anecdotally, I would see a lot of people, I was there at the opening reception for skateboarding, and I would just hear so many people be like, whoa, I've never been in this building before. And I'm like, I know you guys are here for the exhibit, go on down there. But at the same time, the conventionally minded really still do have a lot to love. As people look to log off, re-engage reading, and return to communal spaces, media has really taken note of our role in that resurgence. So for example, we've been called the new hangout spot for Gen Z. Our summer reading challenge has been featured, which is reviving SF's inner bookworm, and the silent book club, which is perfect for introverts who really just want to read, but also be able to engage with their own preference. Next slide, please. So this is actually a very recent article. We've seen this theme already continue to carry through 2026 so far. Last month, KDVU covered the punk show that we held here at the library. If you didn't go, you missed out. It was really fun. And as you can see, the contrast between a punk rock concert and the library as a very strictly silent space was really a big narrative point in the article, with a special shout out to Bay Beats for fairly compensating artists. So reading out this quote here, shushing will be frowned upon as three bands, part of the lineage of the Bay Area's storied punk scene, will take to the stage as Bay Beats continues to expand its catalog of local bands and musicians. Next slide, please. So the second major theme that we identified is that SFPL is considered a champion of diversity. Our Heritage Month programming features frequently an event roundup coverage, which are news articles that essentially spotlight activities in San Francisco. So for example, ways to celebrate Black History Month in a given week. And based on what we've seen, our camp programs were actually included in 46 of these event roundup articles throughout 2025. You'll see that coverage related to our camp groups, which is AA and HPI, African American, Latinx, LGBTQ+, and Native American and Indigenous, made up 33% of all of our coverage, with a total of 102 articles in 2025. However, I do want to note that coverage, a lot of that focused on African American groups with 28 articles, AA and HPI with 22, and LGBTQ+ with 43. Latinx and Native American groups are definitely an area for growth, and we want to ensure that our dedication thus far translates into wider awareness for these programs. Next slide, please. That brings us to our third and final theme, which is city pride. So, of course, San Franciscans really take pride in the city's culture, of which we are a key cornerstone. Bay Area legends like the Grateful Dead, where we had received 9 articles on our Jerry Day Author Talk, a friend of the devil up there, and mascots like Claude the Alligator, where our library card collaboration was covered in channels such as KTVU. They're very well beloved, and they really noted our role in those festivities. Our Drag Laureate and Drag Story Hour programs have really spread nationwide and been well received by press, with many noting us as a trailblazer. And our promotion of San Francisco poets, as well as our Poet Laureate programs, were also covered year-round in 12 articles. Next slide, please. So next, we'll be taking a look at the numbers that provided us with these conclusions. We received a fantastic amount of coverage, a total of 308 articles in 2025. And here you can see the coverage tracked month over month with 3 noticeable spikes. Them being More Than a Month, Booked and Beautiful, Night of Ideas, the Drag Laureate program, and 2 Bay Beats announcements, our Call for Artists, as well as our Bandshell show. So based on these topics, it's very clear that we're seen as a major cultural amplifier. More Than a Month, which includes programs that celebrate Black history not just in February, but throughout the year. Booked and Beautiful, our series of focused programming on queer and trans peoples in the style of a TV talk show. And our Drag Laureate programs being major drivers really shows that we're known for welcoming and advocating for diverse cultural backgrounds and experiences. Bay Beats Call for Artists and our free show also generated interest. As mentioned earlier, reporters really seem to really love how our support of the local music scene has really been helping revive awareness of the Bay Area's talent. Next slide, please. So next up is a breakdown of how our marketing and publicity efforts for our programming has been covered in the news. For context, the public affairs team works on publicizing over 50 marketing campaigns for the library each year, resulting in the following generated coverage, which we are excited to share. So you can see some of our standout campaigns that we've worked on. The 2 major ways that we're really approaching how these campaigns performed are based on the amount of articles that they were mentioned and how much coverage came from very wide-reaching publications. So Drag Laureate, Poet Laureate, Skateboarding, Night of Ideas, Booked and Beautiful, they all had at least 10 articles or more, which is fantastic. And as you can see, while Skateboarding maybe didn't receive as much coverage as the 2 above, it did receive an article in the New York Times, which is a massive get, and I think it really speaks to the amount of interest that the programs we have apply to not just the local audience, but also on a national level. Though I do want to add an asterisk that the New York Times article did happen organically rather than from our direct outreach. News stories are really heavily based on the ebb and flow of trends, and that's why one of the primary goals of this analysis is to really help inform how we can continue to be in the short list for future stories. Next slide, please. And here you can see a similar situation as Skateboarding with Summer Stride. It, quote unquote, only has 5 article mentions, but again, it really received a lot of love in New York Times and the SF Chronicle. While the campaigns in this slide didn't receive technically as much volume as the previous ones, they do have coverage in top publications which we believe can have an equal or potentially even greater impact than just mentions alone. Next slide, please. And the trend continues here as well. Not every top publication will always be a guarantee, but our strong media relationships that we've established over time really help keep us in mind for those feature stories. Next slide. So a major point of interest to the team was how exactly we're being presented in the news, especially in terms of our strategic priorities. As a quick note before diving in, many programs can definitely represent more than one strategic priority. These articles can definitely mention the library in a variety of multiple contexts. As you can see, by far, SFPL is definitely seen as a cultural amplifier. Much of our coverage really presented us as an institution that promotes diverse cultures, as already seen with a lot of the highlights over the course of 2025. And while relatively lower, our role as community catalyzer and literacy champion and resource provider still really resonated with media. Something we did find interesting is that despite being a library, literacy champion actually wasn't the #1 priority. And that's because it could definitely be a variety of reasons. Summer Stride and Imagine Library were strong topics behind that category, but it definitely feels as though it's an angle that maybe doesn't feel as fresh, libraries, literacy, or if our literacy champion focused campaigns could use a retooled strategy, and it's one of the big areas that we're looking at this year and the next. Thoughtful Navigator is also an opportunity for growth. Thoughtful Navigator coverage was definitely composed largely of JARS and Read to Recovery. While the actual mentions were limited, every category really spoke glowingly about the work we do and noted the library as a positive influence. For example, a couple did note the idea of social work in the library really stemming from our own successful programs. And for example, there was even a recent CBS piece on JARS that noted that the program had drawn national attention, and it really spoke to the benefit for incarcerated peoples. Next slide. Here you can see the standout articles for each strategic priority: skateboarding in New York Times for Cultural Amplifier, Night of Ideas and Axios for Community Catalyzer, Summer Stride in New York Times, and our book collections and recommendations in Axios for Resource Provider, and the JARS Tapped In exhibition in Axios for Thoughtful Navigator. Next slide, please. So moving into the final part of the overview, here's a direct comparison between Q1 2025 and 2026, referring to the months of January through March. As you can see, we've already seen an uptick in our amount of news coverage from 77 to 90, which is a 17% increase. Our cultural amplifier coverage continues to hover at a really outstanding amount of mentions, but we've also seen media interest increase across the board for the rest of our strategic priorities. Some highlights include Pride in Panels, which was covered in 7 articles, 4 articles on our Star Trek library card collaboration, and an increase in articles for both Jump Beats, Heartbeats, and JARS. Next slide, please. So I want to note once more that our coverage analysis doesn't only look at wins, it also looks at challenges. And as with all organizations, there are, of course, articles that were more critical. For example, those that noted the city's use of funding and pointed to the library set-aside measure, and another pointed out a gap in data between traffic in the library branches versus the main library. And these stories are definitely just as integral as positive ones. They allow us to really understand the areas that are perceived as significant hurdles, the context behind that perception, and really determine how we can best provide our perspective. However, it's really been tremendous just seeing how much positivity we've seen in the media in 2025, which I believe is really a testament to the quality of our work. I want to leave you with a few quotes from this year's Q1 that really speak to the role we play in the community. In Forbes, on More Than a Month, they noted that it doesn't just celebrate Black History Month, it expands the conversation, and this year's programming is set to be more profound and extensive than ever. Local News Matters, all of the exhibitors noted that the event felt like a sea of hugs from the entire Bay Area. CBS, research has suggested programs like JARS can have long-term benefits. Every dollar spent on prison education programs saves on future incarceration costs over 3 years. And next slide. This is the end, I promise. To end this analysis, I would like to quote Emily Hoven at SF Chronicle. "This summer, my pursuit of the coveted mini-toad helped me realize how libraries can be a refuge from the crush and cynicism of contemporary society. Anyone can sit down and read in their cool and quiet embrace. No one is judging you for your age or your aesthetic or your drinking choices, and the incredible amenities, a daily printing allowance, access to major publications and streaming service, job training, museum, and park passes cost you nothing. Thank you.
Thank you, Pachola.
Thank you very much for the presentation. We will now open public comment on this item. As a reminder, please limit your public comment to this specific agenda item. Public comment is now open.
Yes, and thank you very much, Commission, and to the presenter, thank you. Of course, stop the hate, stop the ignorance. Don't give money to the Friends of the Library. Don't accept money from the Friends of the Library. And if you just took it at face value, you would find this a very positive presentation. We want to be as diverse as possible, don't we? We want to be open and accepting as possible. As usual, of course, San Francisco has caught the wave exactly when it's going in the wrong direction. If you follow the New York Times in general, you'll find that it's full of articles about traditional institutions trying to get back to promoting literacy, trying to get back to getting young people into improving their minds and away from all of the distractions that go under the title diversity. Now, I'm in favor of all of those things too. And as I said, I was enthralled by the presentation. And I'm grateful for the way it ended. You know, we need to emphasize what he emphasized at the end, which is that it's all things to all people. No one's judging you. No one's trying to deter you from anything. But as library supporters, I know that you're bored as heck. You're taking up where P.D. Wang left off. You're shaking your head and yawning and trying to let me know that you're an impenetrable wall of ignoration and I might as well give up. Yes, well, you know, the truth is I'm getting older and I soon will give up. But somebody has to sit on this library commission, and I hope that they will promote the traditional values of keeping our history, keeping our culture, and emphasizing that we are the door to it. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, Jason Gibbs, retired librarian. You have a very nice presentation. I do have to say that one thing that I've noticed over my career towards the end is just how much energy and staffing has gone into public relations at the library. It really was not a big thing in the past, and I think the combination of the set-aside and the reallocation of public service jobs towards the sixth floor to work on public relations has created I see it on the news all the time. A lot to be proud about at the library, and I'm sure that you're proud too, and that's why you enjoy doing this, because there's so much to be grateful that the library does. But you know, they emphasize the loud and lively part because that seems so un-library-like. But that's where this quote from Emily Hoven comes in so well, because my experience at the library is feeling the gratitude that we could provide a peaceful, safe place for the people of the Tenderloin, people living in SROs, where they can come in and basically just be left alone and be on their own because they don't really have spaces. And I always worry that this overemphasis on the bright, shiny stuff detracts from really recognizing and rewarding the everyday stuff. And so like objectives and key results is one of those things that's spoken about. And again, it's a matter of, have you devoted your institutional energy towards public relations, or have you devoted them to actually being there to serve people when they need it? The one day that you need to come in and print out your resume, you don't know how to do it, well, the librarian is busy giving a program. You know, it's like you missed out on that person. And so my hope when I worked there was to never miss out on that person, to whatever they come at, wherever they're at, to provide them with service. And I see the public service positions going off to more sort of administrative or public relations jobs. And I feel like it is going to have an outcome on the objectives and key results. Thank you.
Peter Warfield, Executive Director, Library Users Association, Library Users 2004 at protonmail.com. City librarian nods, that's the correct one. And Library Users, P.O. Box 170544, San Francisco, California, 94117-0544, and the mail has more confidentiality of records than, generally speaking, email. We do spend in the library a ton of money on public relations, so it seems like I could have gotten a better assembled item. The front page goes like this, and then the rest of it is upside down and lacks page numbers. And I see a smile on Commissioner Lopez's face. What fun to try and read this sort of in a backward sequence without page numbers. One of the reasons I do like to get a copy of what's offered in the back, and sometimes from you, is when there seems to be the possibility of a different version between what you have or what's in the back and what I get in the mail as a subscriber to the library agenda packet. And there have been times in the past when people were commenting on something only to be told at the end of their comment that they were wasting their time because there was a new version that had been prepared between the time they got their version and the time that they were talking here. I'd like to say that I'm always glad to hear what the library is doing, and this is a thorough appearing report with lots of numbers and statistics. People will cover what you give them, and it's difficult to be critical of the library, I think, especially if you don't know some of the subtleties. So first of all, I'd like to see much more on books and other written material, which is, after all, what the library was founded for and provides in general in quite good quantity and variety, although it could be in certain respects better. The library does not count or praise its own availability of newspapers, of periodicals, and the newspapers, which are apparently not counted at all with circulation figures, don't seem to exist in the reports about what's going on, even though that's something that I think is extremely important, valuable, and should be expanded because of all the trouble we're having with media these days, the dying off of traditional media and so on. But there are still independent magazines, for example, and newspapers that I think the library ought to have more of. Daily, only typically 3 newspapers. What about the Financial Times? What about the Mercury News? Excellent publications the library typically does not have on a daily basis at the locations, at the non-main library. I'd also like to see exceptional books, beautiful books, large books. Toshin has published at least one that has its own table and weighs almost 60 pounds. Let's see some of those and have them featured in reports.
Thank you, Margot. Pocholo, thank you for your presentation. I just wanted to put something out there. Careers in the library. I think that we have wonderful jobs, and I think that's something really to promote. I know as I'm coming toward the end of my career, and just thinking about those to come in the future, it's just something, it's very meaningful. That's okay. It's very meaningful and brings a lot of satisfaction. So I just wanted to throw that out there. And I appreciated, Pocholo, when you were saying that, the piece around, sometimes we have to look at the stuff that doesn't go so well as the success, right? With that in mind, you mentioned about the Latinx and Native American groups. What plans do we have to provide more in those areas? And thank you.
Thank you. Is there any additional public comment? Hearing no further requests for public comment is now closed, and we move to commission discussion on item number 4. Commissioners, please.
Pacholo, thank you so much for your presentation. And just to clarify, so with the coverage analysis, what you have done is what the media has put out there. My understanding is that the library always submits press releases, but we do not have the choice of what gets covered by media. Am I correct with that?
Yes, essentially.
Okay. So I feel really excited and proud of what, like some of the programs and some of the media that has taken notice of the things that we do. I know that the library puts tons of programs at all levels, and to get some of them to be recognized by very well-known media channels, it's great. So I just wanted to commend you for the work. I think this report gives us an idea. And then I know that every time there's a major event, the library is there to notify the communities, the media channels, and so, keep up with a great job. We are being noticed, and so thank you.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. I'm very lucky to work with an amazing team, and I'm lucky to work at a place I love. So,
Commissioner Menon.
Thank you for the report. Is there any way to track what the coverage leads to? Is there do you see an increase in people coming to these different events, or users, attendees, anything like that?
yes, so that is one of the primary steps that we're really looking toward. We definitely had a lot of discussion on sort of feeling out, how attendees are finding out about certain events. I believe, Jamie, can you speak a bit? We've discussed a lot of past. Yes.
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, there's not a perfect science. We can't always know how someone hears about something so that they come and they check out a book or they use an e-resource to attend a program. We are trying to suss that out in a little bit more. So we would consider that maybe phase 2 in this project. This is a pilot, and we are very fortunate to have Pacholo do some of this deeper analysis this year to really understand our successes and our opportunities for growth.
Thank you. Commissioner Jones.
Pacholo, this is amazing work, and I really do want to commend you highlighting the good and the bad. I think we often don't do that, and so I just want to celebrate that. I have 2 questions. One, just kind of building on what our prior commissioner, I almost just called you a new, but I'm curious, are you looking at impressions? What is the difference between mentions and impressions?
Yes, so mentions is essentially a single article that mentions it. So if it says library at all, that's a mention. In terms of impressions, there's really several ways that you can go about it. Like Jamie mentioned, there's no hard science because, the amount of times an article is read through that statistic is very much opaque. But we can make sort of estimations based on social media presence for publication, engagement with either, those reposts or, in those articles, looking at the approximate amount of web traffic that may have happened the month that article came out. So I wouldn't say there's a very specific hard number, but I think there are definitely ways to gauge just how much a publication is reaching audience-wise.
I think that would be a really nice add to this, because I think that mentions is like a nice way to count kind of where you're showing up. But impressions is actually kind of, it's not getting to the heart of kind of the patron journey back to the library, but it's getting to the heart of how many people are being touched by it. And I think that that's part of the narrative that we should tell as we're thinking about media. And then my second question to you is, you highlighted a little bit around how, I loved your view of the media relative to our strategic priorities, and specifically how literacy was lower than we had hoped for. And I'm curious, as you guys are thinking about kind of all your marketing vehicles across paid and owned, how do you augment what might not be happening in earned media through your paid and owned channels to kind of offset that component of the strategic priority that I agree with a lot of things that people mentioned today? Like, we want to celebrate the library and the institution of reading and books as much as the evolution of these spaces. And I think that we can use some of our tools to help tell that story if others won't do it for us. And so I think that that's just something for you guys to think about strategically, is like, what are our other vehicles to help us deliver against the strategic priorities? Because it might not always be the Chronicle who gets to tell that story, even though that would be great, or the Times, or whomever. So that's just something I think you guys should think about, is all three of those components.
Yes, definitely appreciate it.
Commissioner Bolander.
Thank you so much for the presentation. A couple of things. One of the things that some PR people do is put earned media dollars, how much it's actually worth. So, of course, New York Times is more money than something else. So that's the other good way to do it in terms of impressions as well. I think the other thing is any kind of keyword or sentiment analysis on the coverage as well, just to see, you mentioned negative, mostly it's positive, right? Because who doesn't love the library, right? But that's another thing I think, as this moves forward, would be good to kind of monitor, because, a story in the New York Times is worth 5-6 figures. Easily probably pays for our entire organization 20 times fold, right? All of this stuff is just, you can't buy that, right? So I would love to see that, so we can look at what's the true ROI, right? Which is great. And then the other thing is, you mentioned how much people get, how much we actually get coverage. Do we monitor how many pitches? Like, hey, we pitched them, they said no, et cetera. Or, because that's another thing for just how well we're pitching, how the traction is, et cetera. That's an important piece of the puzzle. Typically, you want to see, oh yeah, these pitches work better than others, as opposed to other things, right? Especially when it comes to this literacy stuff that apparently people aren't as interested as we are.
Yeah.
So that's it. Excellent work, by the way.
Thank you. And yes, just to speak on the first point, in terms of sentiment, that is something we actually do track. This analysis is more of an overview of the general categories, but we do keep track of tone of article and things like that.
This is so cool. I'm learning so much. Thank you all. I guess what I would like for you to help me understand is, where does this fit? What's the context? Do you measure us against other cultural institutions in the Bay, or do you look at us relative to other libraries? Where does this fit in sort of the bigger ecosystem of media? Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. And I believe one of our primary goals is really to make sure that everything gets the appreciation it deserves. Like you saw, there are definitely some things where they're just so sparkly that people will look at it and be like, oh, let's write on this. But we really are aiming to do a lot of work in promoting just a lot of the everyday things. For example, our reading collections that I've mentioned a couple times. People love hearing about, what are people reading? What can I pick up at the library? And so we really want to show and encourage that a lot of these resources that are really readily available, that they're just as important and deserve just as much awareness.
I can add on to Pacholo's excellent point that it is really, it's really smart to monitor what else is happening out there in the marketplace, and our software does allow us to do some search and understanding of what other major urban library systems, for example, what kind of coverage is happening, if only to help us understand the media landscape. What are people covering? What's really interesting out there, so that we can get like a little bit of a jump into pitching the next story, that kind of thing. So yes, we are looking at that with the software, monitoring it.
Hate to make more work for you, but I would love to know sort of where we land next to DC Public or something like that. You know, I think I've said this story before, but, you know, one of the reasons I became a librarian was because of punk rock music. You know, 20 years ago, DC Public had a punk rock band perform at their library, and it changed me, right? So you never know, right? But I kind of think that knowing how would you like us to think about what these numbers mean, right? Would be I think interesting. So more work, but super excited for all that you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioners? Okay, we will now move on to item number 5. This is the branch division report, and I turn it over again to our city librarian.
Thank you, President Calhoun. Library staff appreciate the opportunity to present an overview of the branches division. Our library system is notable in that we have the third most library locations per square mile of any municipality in the country. 7 by 7 square miles, 28 libraries. San Francisco Public Library's branches anchor neighborhoods in each supervisorial district and serve as vital community hubs and third places for residents to access and meet their needs for library services. The branches division represent the single largest division in terms of personnel, with over 1/3 of our entire department's workforce residing in the branches. With more information, Chief of Branches Rebecca Alcala-Vera-Flor is here to provide this report.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm so excited to be here and talk to you about our branches division, near and dear to my heart. Again, my name is Rebecca Alcala-Vera-Flor, and I am the Chief of Branches for the San Francisco Public Library. I'm going to provide with you an overview of the 27 neighborhood libraries, which are rooted in their neighborhoods. The branches are the epitome of community catalyzers, offering programs and services for all ages, while building strong partnerships through schools, community-based organizations, and local events. During this presentation, I will provide you with information about how the division is structured, the communities we serve, history about our branches, and data about patron usage. By the end of my presentation, I hope you will have learned more about how the branches division is able to serve as a community catalyzer and where we want to go from here. I want to begin by introducing the team in the Chief of Branches office. Slide. The Chief of Branches division falls under the Chief of Public Services, Dolly Goyle, and is the largest division in the organization with 260 plus FTE, which translates into about 400 people. Together, branches provide 1,400 hours of public service. I am responsible for directing operations of the branches division. Flo Batad, circulation supervisor, and Michael Roman, junior management assistant, provide administrative support. They help track the budget, order supplies, and work with support staff from other library divisions to serve as subject matter experts to improve processes for efficiency. The Assistant Chief of Branches, Christy Estrovitz, is responsible for the day-to-day operations of the branches division and direct supervision of the 5 district managers you see here. Each of the district's managers is responsible for a group of branches within an area of the city. The library districts were formed based on proximity to one another. These are distinct from the city's supervisorial districts that are based on census data. Before I present information on each of the districts, I would like to provide an overview of 2 of our major investments in branch renovations: the Branch Library Improvement Program and Library Improvements for Tomorrow. Slide. Many SFPL branches began as library stations, which were small-scale deposit stations that served local communities by bringing books to neighborhoods before becoming established as branch libraries. Once established, some branches operated from storefronts before eventually landing in their current locations. The establishment of a library in the Excelsior, for example, took place in 1925 when it was located on Ocean Avenue before moving to Mission Street, where the current building resides. This was the first branch to undergo renovation through Blip, opening in 2005. Pictured here to the right is Park Branch. It is our oldest existing library in SFPL, and it opened its doors in 1909. The Branch Library Improvement Program, or BLIP, has been described as a renaissance for neighborhood libraries. In 2000, San Franciscans passed a bond measure to update and strengthen the physical structure of the city's branch libraries, many of which were facing closure due to accessibility and safety concerns. Through BLIP, the library was able to reduce seismic risk of branch libraries, comply with the Americans with Disabilities Act, and replace leased facilities with city-owned. Branches were also renovated to include space where communities could gather by adding program rooms and outdoor green spaces. Slide. In some cases, new buildings were required to address the safety and accessibility concerns. For example, the Bayview branch was often referred to and described as a bunker for its virtually windowless wall and concrete exterior. Through BLIP and because of community engagement, the branch now offers floor-to-ceiling windows with views to the center garden courtyard as well as 3rd and Revere Streets. This is pictured on the lower side of the screen on the right. It is also important to note that the general contractor and half of the subcontractors were based out of Bayview. The branch was renamed Bayview Linda Brooks Burton Branch after reopening for the longtime Bayview branch manager who was the original branch division community catalyzer. In Mission Bay, which is featured here at the top, the emergence of a new residential community offered the opportunity to create a new library, making this the 28th library location. And yes, this marks their 20th anniversary, which they will be celebrating this year. Its co-location with Mercy Housing, plus accessibility for pedestrians, proximity to the NT Caltrain, Giant Stadium, and Chase Center make this branch a destination spot for those who want to register for a library card. This fiscal year alone, they have registered over 2,400 new library cards. The next, after the Maine, of course, this is excluding Maine, is Richmond, which is a little over 1,900, just to give you a sense. Slide. Now, I have to talk about our beautiful Carnegies. 5 out of the 7 SFPL Carnegies, Golden Gate Valley, Noe Valley, Presidio, Richmond, and Sunset, were also renovated as part of BLIP. Renovations included revamped staff work areas, additional patio courtyards with gardens, community rooms, in addition to the safety and accessibility upgrades. Their historic features were also repaired and restored. Here pictured, you see the Golden Gate Valley at the top on the right hand. At the bottom below it is an old photo of the Richmond branch, so you can get a sense of what it looked like before. And next to that, on the bottom left hand, is the Noe Valley branch. And if you haven't visited these branches, I highly encourage you to, especially the Noe Valley with its gorgeous garden in the backyard, managed by a group of volunteer master gardeners. Slide. Our second major investment in branch renovation is the Library Improvements for Tomorrow program, or LIFT. Neither Mission nor Chinatown were renovated as part of BLIP. Instead, these Carnegies were retrofitted for earthquake safety using private and public funding before BLIP began. The Ocean View branch experienced many changes since it was first established as a library in 1903, including operating out of 5 different storefronts before opening to the public in its current home in 2000, thanks to the advocacy and fundraising of the Ocean View community. All 3 branches are part of the Library Improvement for Tomorrow, which has the goal of providing communities with 21st century libraries. John Cunha, our facilities director, will provide more information about LIFT in a future commission meeting. I don't want to steal his thunder, so I won't go into too many details about it. Slide, please. Since BLIP, we have continued to invest in our buildings by working with our partners in the facilities division and actively listening to community and staff feedback. I will highlight some of these projects in these sections. I will also highlight the special collections, services offered, programs, and community engagement, which are informed by data we collect from the census, as well as the community's history, culture, and identity. This helps us to focus our efforts that meet the community needs, while also ensuring that patrons have access to new and different experiences. The penguins you see to the left on the screen are part of Eureka Valley's and Tango Makes Three Pride display in the children's area. Whereas the Castro was home to mostly adults, the passage of marriage and family acts have contributed to the growth of families in the Castro. It should come as no surprise then that Drag Queen Story Hour made its debut there a little over 10 years ago, in partnership with Radar Productions. Since BLIP, the Eureka Valley branch's landscaping, including courtyard and parking area, was renovated. Since then, the improved space has allowed the team to host programs and outdoor events, inviting passerbys to enjoy the fun. The identity and rich history of this district, as well as demographics of the community, are why patrons can find materials and attend programs in English, Spanish, and Japanese. Bilingual staff can partner with community-based organizations to share resources and present programs. This district also includes programs like jazz bands from the Fillmore performing at Western Addition, or the Potrero Hill Art Show, which is the longest-running art show in San Francisco, with over 60 years of exhibiting and celebrating community art. Slide, please. Nestled between a thriving commercial corridor and the lively Moscone Park, the Marina branch has taken advantage of their location to host epic open houses that welcome small business owners, city departments, and spotlight the artistic talent of local artists. The North Beach branch is the epicenter of the beat scene, and patrons can find a collection of information on the history of the movement as well as new local poets. They also participate in the Italian Heritage Parade every October, highlighting the contributions made by this community to SF. The Chinatown branch has the largest Chinese language collection in the system, with dedicated staff who speak Mandarin and Cantonese. Updates to branches in this district include a roof replacement at the Marina branch that was conducted a few years ago, and the upcoming plan to repair the historic facade of the Golden Gate Valley branch. Slide, please. All 4 branches in this district are historic landmarks, beginning with our Carnegie's, Sunset Presidio, Richmond, as well as one of the 3 branches originally funded through the Work Projects Administration, WPA, from the New Deal. That's ANZA. Located near Geary, Balboa, Clement, 19th, Judah, and Irving, as well as proximity to Golden Gate Park and Land's Ends, these branches thrive with community activity and have a rich and diverse history. Patrons will find programs and collections in Russian and Chinese, as well as collections Korean and Vietnamese. Because of their beauty, the branches have been selected as filming locations for movies, commercials, and print ads. In fact, Presidio was the filming location for a comedy featuring Kristen Wiig. With its large screen space adjacent to a children's playground, Richmond Branch regularly hosts outdoor story times, has hosted the Bay Beats concert series, and Tricycle Music Fest. Collections here are rich with all of the different languages and are one of the top circulating branches. Featured here at Richmond, we had our celebration of May the 4th be with you, complete with mascots. And below that, the Sunset Open House, we introduced a new program for us, which is the Blue Dahlia that was discovered at the Sunset Night Market, where the branch regularly tables as part of their outreach. Slide, please. A commitment to engaging with community is central to the branches in the Southeast, which often includes service and equity zones. Partnerships with the Boys and Girls Club, YMCA, Family Connections in Portola, and community events are how these branches build relationships and connection. For example, Bernal Heights, another one of the WPA buildings, has needed to turn families away to their story time because their community room is too small. Their solution? Partner with Rec Park on the same lot and offer the program for free at the rec center next door, which can accommodate twice as many people. As I mentioned, the Excelsior branch was the first to reopen after Blip, and since then has received a fresh carpet, ergonomic workstations for staff, and was the first branch to pilot the laptop lending kiosk, which has been seen at multiple branches now. Languages that are spoken in this community: Spanish, Cantonese, Mandarin, and we also have the Filipinx collection at the Excelsior branch. Pictured here, we have the Portola branch fire truck as part of their open house. And next to that is Bernal Heights branch with Nadia Volney, Manny Mabry, our wonderful custodian, and our district manager, Ann Vanucci. This is when we had a press conference with Attorney General Rob Bonta. Next slide, please. On the west side of the city, from Ortega to Ocean View, the southwest branches serve a wide breadth of patrons. Teens take over the Merced, Ortega, West Portal, Ingleside, and Parkside branches with their proximity to public and private high schools. With this type of demand, the branches have responded by refurnishing teen spaces, replacing old and clunky study hall-like tables and chairs from Blip with comfy seats that invite gathering and align with teen social development, or by offering programs like Yell and participating in the Youth Advisory Board. The Ortega branch is the northernmost branch in the Southwest and the only branch on that side of 19th Street with a community room. As a result, Ortega is one of the busiest branches in the division, as it has been since reopening in 2011. To date, Ortega has welcomed over 177,000 visitors, which is second to Richmond, who has welcomed 183,000 this fiscal year. Slide, please. All right, here we go with some of the data. System-wide, visits have recovered to 87% of pre-COVID levels, with 5 branches now exceeding pre-COVID activity. Recovery is broad but uneven across the system. Most branches fall within the 80 to 95% range, indicating relatively consistent recovery. Higher performing branches, such as Eureka Valley and Noe Valley, may reflect localized demand shifts, including possible redistribution of visits from the Mission branch while it is being renovated. Lower recovery branches, including Chinatown and Mission, reflect how external conditions and internal service factors impact usage, which can vary significantly by neighborhood. As the chief of branches, it is important to understand the push and pull factors of each neighborhood. I do this through regular check-ins with branch managers, meeting twice a month, along with annual on-site visits. This helps build a clearer picture of each community experiences their area. That context is critical to understanding what we see in the data. For example, in Chinatown, long-term construction impacts, including the development of Rose Pack Station 2 blocks from the branch, contributed to a decline in visits prior to the pandemic. COVID-19 and increased safety concerns within the Asian community further accelerated that decline. We also noticed a shift in demographics with less families living in the community. Internally, leadership transition and staffing constraints following the pandemic also affected community engagement. At the same time, the branch is actively adapting. Staff have expanded outreach through partnerships, including technology tabling at Rose Pack Station and regular presence at community events. As the branch prepares to transition to a temporary site during the renovation, they are working with community groups to deliver programs in partner spaces and have hosted pop-up events at their temp site on Grant. Next slide, please. Once I understand what drives patron behavior, then I look at their experience when they are in our branches. Randy McClure, Chief of Research Strategy and Analytics, has shared patron satisfaction data with you before. As a reminder and to orient you, the patron satisfaction survey is sent monthly via email to a random sample of active patrons. This means patrons that have used their library card at any point in the previous 90 days. Patron satisfaction ratings have remained remarkably consistent since the survey was first sent out in December of 2023. Slide. In the branches, the scores are calculated by averaging the ratings of all the monthly questions shown in the previous slide. The slide represents all responses from branch users since December 2023. Patrons are asked to select which location do you visit most. RSA was able to determine statistically significant sample sizes based on branch service area populations. However, there are 5 branches still below 80% of that sample size. Those branches are shown separately at the bottom of the graph. We are actively working towards getting a representative sample for each branch and doing proactive surveying to patrons at underrepresented branches. Overall ratings are consistently high across all branches, averaging 9 out of 10. The scores show very little variation with a narrow range of 0.3 points between the lowest and highest rated branches. And while some branches may be at the bottom of the list, we want to emphasize that their scores are still incredibly high, and no matter what branch patron uses, they are experiencing excellent, highly rated service from staff interactions to collections to our facilities. Slide, please. We are currently operating at full service levels with 1,400 weekly hours scheduled across our 27 branches, excluding the main library. We've been stable at that level since FY24. This reflects a full recovery from the COVID-19 closure in FY20, when we had to close all our locations, followed by a gradual restoration of service over the next few years. In 2017, which you'll notice here on the graph, branches opened all locations to 7-day and were able to raise public service hours to a minimum of 50 to 55 hours, making SFPL the only system in the region offering 7-day service. There was a time when some of our branches were only open 5 days a week, and some were only open 6 days a week, so this was tremendous. As part of the Library Preservation Fund, SFPL is required to review public service hours every 5 years, and we are ready for 2028 to begin that process. I think this will be my third. All right, slide please. We could not do this work without the support and advocacy of our Council of Neighborhood Libraries. These power users and staunch advocates came together in the late 1980s when threats of branch closures due to budget cuts became their call to action. Council members were instrumental in fighting branch closures and public service hours. They worked tirelessly in their neighborhoods for the passage of Prop E in 1994 to ensure more hours and more books. Pictured here is our current group of CNL members at the Presidio branch during our annual gathering in the winter, with the bench dedicated to Marcia Popper, original member of CNL, Council of Neighborhood Libraries, who passed away over a year ago. Next slide, please. As community catalyzers, the branches take pride in their relationships with schools, community-based organizations, and city departments like Treasurer and Tax Collectors K2C, elections, emergency management, and SF Environment, to name a few. We also appreciate the support of the Board of Supervisors who invite us to participate in and host events like Pokemon Go with Supervisor Walton and Chan's office, or in outreach events like the Sunset Community Health Fair with Supervisor Wong, seen previously on a slide. The intentional work that youth-serving librarians do to reach students in school is also something to celebrate. They offer book clubs during lunch at middle schools, invite school bands and mariachis to perform at our annual open houses, and schedule regular class visits during the school year. This year marks the first time SF Opera was invited to table at an open house. You can see that here in the center at the Sunset branch. I am also proud to say that at the end of this fiscal year, the SF Symphony, who we have a partnership with, will have hosted a program at each one of our branches. Yay. Next slide, please. Revealing this to you here and now, although the branch managers already know, none of this is possible without the amazing work of the branch managers, SFPL's 2026 Excellence Award winners. Branch managers are uniquely positioned to be creative in offering programs and services that bring their communities together. Within their group, you will find people who make sure the library is present and accounted for in community events and initiatives. Read to Recovery. They are a driving force in leading their teams towards visualizing and realizing Vision 2030. We will continue to use the data and community identities to provide services that meet the needs of our communities. We will also continue to try new ways to reach community members who still don't know about the library. We've made huge strides by encouraging staff to take the bilingual language exam so they can use their skills when meeting their needs. We also look for professional development opportunities and experience that not only help our staff grow, but shine a light on the work that SFPL does. Next slide, please. And I want to say thank you for allowing me the space to discuss branches. I also want to thank my colleagues in the other divisions who not only helped me put this presentation together, RSA, you're amazing, but also to the teams in IT, like our AV unit. They provide so much support to our program, CPP, of course, Michelle's team, the press, who constantly come to our events and interview us about what we're doing. We, of course, can't do this without our friends in finance, facilities. It is a team effort, and I know people will talk about silos within libraries and departments. We don't see that in the branches. We see everyone. We have security on site. We know them by name. Our staff are our staff, and we do an incredible job. So from me and from our queen here, Linda Summers, a Guatemalan American drag performer and philanthropist, I want to say thank you. This is featured at the Marina Branches open house. As I said, it is epic. So if you can go, I totally invite you to be there. Thank you so much for your time and attention. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you very much. At this point, we will open public comment on this item. As a reminder, please limit your public comment to this specific agenda item. Public comment is now open in Correct.
Thank you, Margot. Thank you, Rebecca. There's a reason I work in the branches. I love the branches. Very rewarding. I used to work at the main, which is also great. So, but I am partial because I'm still working at the branches. Yeah, okay. Just go to compose myself because it's a wonderful thing working in the branches. I just want to, actually, I'll just double down on some things there. I think it's very rewarding with our programs to meet with our patrons. I wonder how much I can share this story. Maybe not because it's, I don't want to divulge something from a patron who was sharing something that happened, a hardship. It's very touching. You develop a relationship with your patrons. I think over the course, I've worked in the branches now since I left the main in 2003, so a long time. It's very community-based, family style. That's the term I use, and I think a lot of us follow that in principle. We're drawn by the principle of always excellent customer service, service excellence, so that's something that we learn and that we showed in the food bank and wherever else in our background. So yeah, I just wanted to double down on all that. I just want to say one thing though, is that we don't have security in all the locations, so I know Rebecca was sharing that, so it's one of those things that is important for us to get to, because I think safety is a critical piece for our members, for our workers. I also think when we did go to the 7-day model, the issue about staffing. So that's always getting additional extra hours for our staff to be able to provide the service that we're accustomed to giving, because it is a relationship. And it's very rewarding, like I was saying, and I can really start laughing and being smiling about it because I very much enjoy it. So with that, I'll thank you.
Peter Warfield, Executive Director, Library Users Association, Library Users 2004 at protonmail.com, protonmail.com. And P.O. Box 170544, San Francisco, California, 94117-0544. As usual, thank you for an extensive report. There were a couple of things that I'd like to point out in history as well as in the future. I have talked in the past from time to time about my concerns with the de-bookification trend at the library in a variety of ways. And I think that one of the members of the commission talked about reading in general in America seems to be on the decline, which I think means not that the library should say, oh, I guess people don't want books, but rather do a better job or a more extensive job or pay a little more attention or a lot more attention to the value and the interest of books. I mean, I love books, I love libraries, and librarians in general. Books can provide whole new worlds in fiction and of interest. They can also expand anything that you are interested in and help you to get better at it, more understanding of it, and so on, no matter what the subject, including any of the exhibits and programs that the library has. When I see 20th century libraries is the goal of the LIFT program, that doesn't say anything. My experience with taking part in renovations is they've been very poor on specifics and more poor with respect to the capacity of books. And they don't want to tell you that, and so on and so forth. I think you need capacity for books, and I think you need capacity to show the books. With respect to Park Branch, I'm glad to say that I was part of a group that wanted not to have the renovations on the 100th birthday of the branch, the oldest in the system, surviving in the system, but rather put it off so the 100th birthday could be celebrated, and that happened. I'm very concerned about service to the public during renovations, which I think in this library has been, I don't want to use, inflammatory terms, but awful. The Park Branch got 7.5 hours in a bookmobile per week. And the Mission Branch is a pitiful storefront that's tiny compared with the beautiful, big Mission Branch. But the service to the public during renovations has been awful and needs to be kept in mind to keep up service to the public. I have more to say as well.
Is there any additional public comment? Hearing no further requests for comment, public comment is now closed, and we move to commission discussion on this item. Commissioners. Commissioner Kennison.
Rebecca, thank you. What a huge lift our 28 branches do for our library. Since our last commission meeting, I was trying to put check marks next to the pictures because I think Parkside's on Terraville.
Yes, it is.
All right, so since the last commission meeting, I've visited Sunset, Parkside, Ortega, which some people say is the best.
It's beautiful.
I will acknowledge that you can watch the sunset from the
yes.
outside space at the Ortega Library and arguably can't be beat. Obviously, here at the Main, Anna had the opportunity to visit the Bernal Heights branch just last week. My consistent experience is seeing that service excellence. So kudos to you and to the team, to the work that's being done behind the scenes. I've watched librarians interact with our patrons, some who are more challenging than others. I've visited the bathrooms, which are clean, and I've walked through the halls and the stacks, which are organized, and a place that offers a lot of opportunity for folks who want to be there for studying, for quiet spaces to read a book. This is the really critical work that is being done across all 28 locations. I look forward to visiting more. I feel a little bit like a secret shopper. Nobody recognizes me.
Well, we welcome you to all of them.
Thank you. I just, with a lot of appreciation.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Menon.
Thank you for this report. I I was reading an article recently about teens and loneliness and how a lot of third spaces are closing down to teens, like malls and McDonald's and things like that won't let teens come in alone. So it's really great to hear about the usage, and particularly like how smart it is to have the locations like Ortega, between multiple schools and a park and all of that to really ensure that kind of traffic and safe spaces for teens to meet. I also just wanted to ask, is there any kind of like low-hanging fruit, because obviously the scores are great, but both for the patron experience and user experience at the libraries, but also, for staff, they're there all day, right? And so do you see any kind of like smaller kind of improvements or things that could be made ongoing?
So when we meet regularly with the branch managers, I think one of the things that I hear from them can vary based on the community that they serve, right? And so I try to look at this as what is their low-hanging fruit? What is it that they want to change? So for example, when I shared Bernal Heights' situation, I mean, we were getting complaints from patrons who weren't able to come into their story time because the community room was so small. And so it was really about putting it in they came up with the solution, and so it was more about me saying, yeah, that makes sense, and let's plan it together. So for each location, it's gonna vary. And we've done where do we present the story times to get more people and more visibility into the branch, because maybe it's in an equity zone and they just aren't coming in. They don't feel that that's their space. To how do we deal with such a huge, massive crowd? Ortega, which is, you've been there, and I quoted the numbers. It's huge numbers of people that come in. How do we fit them all in? And trying to figure that out. So small things like removing a table that's taking up space in Ortega and replacing it with teen-specific type fun spaces based on teen input and what they want to do in terms of gathering. Like those small little wins are where we're able to move the needle slowly. And then we have the bigger wins of how do we, Park Branch started doing the Silent Book Club in partnership with CPP. They brought it to us. And it's like, okay, well, how do we make this happen? And other branches have done it. And they figure out things that work for their community. Mission Bay does programming with residents at Mercy Housing who are retired seniors but have very good skills, like bookbinding and things like that. So those are the small wins that we look for. It's hard to do it with such a diverse community to have one small low-hanging fruit. We've got bigger goals in mind with Vision 2030 and the things that we're trying to move there. But we're also working towards, staff development and the things where they want to learn and grow. I hope that answers your question. Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Lopez.
Rebecca, muchas gracias.
Nada.
The report, it really helped put them in, like by groups. It really helped follow. I just want to say that for the last 3 years or so, I've been attending the Council of Neighborhood Libraries celebration or appreciation, and it is obvious how each community feels so passionate about their libraries and how much they appreciate the branches and the people that work there.
Yeah.
It's shown. There's people that every year after year feel like they own it, and that is an amazing feeling. And every neighborhood really represents the community and the communities that are in those neighborhoods. The language support that is given is so valued. So to you and to all your staff, thank you for everything that you've been doing and this report. Keep up with, emboldening those neighbors because they lead.
Yes, they do.
The services and the and, you know, just what is needed within those branches and neighborhoods.
Yeah.
So thank you.
We actually have one in the audience, I think, still. Sonia. She's one of our CNL members for Ingleside Branch. Thank you.
Thank you so much to you and to all the neighborhood participants, because we listen to you. So thank you.
Great presentation.
Thank you.
I just had the district kind of composition was new to me, at least, and I love seeing it in that way.
Yes.
I think what could be nice next time as we continue to look at this information is almost having that district aggregation and understanding trends by district.
Yeah, we could do that.
Just because I think that we could gain insights that right now we're like so in the weeds that it's kind of hard to pull out, like, are there themes here? And I think that would be helpful to help, like, tell a story, or to help, I think, us guide maybe in, I don't know, potentially, you know, like helping kind of unlock opportunity where maybe there is an underperforming, I don't want to say underperforming, but everything's performing, clearly. Everything's like above the waterline. But I think that, you know, you did highlight specifically in traffic, like we have above average, and then there are kind of that are floating below, and then there's just like this middle section hovering around like the 80s. I'm curious, one, when we start to look at it by district, does that start to tell a story? And or what are we doing about that stagnant 80? Like, is there something, is it more outreach, so like community outreach? Is it just that there have been shifts within that community that are similar to what's happening in the bottom kind of quartile? I'm curious, like, what are the conversations that you guys are having about that stagnant 80? And then go forward, just that view on the districts would be, I think, helpful.
Absolutely. I think I'd be happy to do a part 2. And just anecdotally, what I can tell you is that these are themes that we talk about regularly with the team, with everyone, saying like, well, what can we do? What are some efforts that we can make towards restoring some of our patronage? So, you know, programs like our open house, we just talked about that today, scheduling those, what does that look like? And then there are other things like traffic, parking. I mean, Eureka Valley has the only one with a parking lot. Western Addition no longer has a parking lot because Rec Park uses it for other facilities. So those things change, things that are kind of out of our hands in some ways. So we do talk about that, but I think a deep dive would be, I'd be happy to provide that.
Great.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Have a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you so much to all of you.
And now we turn to item number 6, the discussion of the city librarian's report.
Thank you, President Calhoun. We have a couple brief presentations this evening, and I'm pleased to introduce our first presenter. Michelle Jeffers is the Chief of Community Programs and Partnerships, and she was also the visionary that brought us the cultural phenomenon that is the Night of Ideas, and she's here to provide some highlights this evening of the most recent Night of Ideas this past weekend. Mademoiselle.
Madame, I think. Thank you for having me, Commissioners. I'm pleased to be here and to show off Night of Ideas 2026, lighting the way. It was really a remarkable night. As you know, we've been hosting Night of Ideas since 2019, and every year it gets more involved and bigger and better always. It's a partnership with the Villa Albertine, the French cultural attaché of the French government, KQED, for the last 2 years, the Asian Art Museum, and Circuit Network, our artist performing partner. And of course, it's hugely funded by the Friends of the San Francisco Public Library. This would not happen without them, so thank you, friends. Next slide, please. So I just only was able to pull together a few slides for you this week to get it into your commission packet on time, but just trying to give those of you who weren't there, I know several of you were, just give you a quick glance of all the things that had happened that night. You may know that Night of Ideas happens in more than 150 cities around the world. It actually happens in 18 cities in the United States. What you may not know is San Francisco is the very biggest. So we're really proud of that, and we go the longest. We party hard. We're really quite into it. We're also one of the only 2 cities that do it at a public library. So many times it happens at like the French consul's offices and things like that in other cities. So we're really about the community and the partnership of that. This year, despite an incredibly oddly torrential rains, we welcomed 7,100 people inside the main library. Another almost 2,500 people were in the Asian Art Museum for the event. We had more than 300 presenters, performers, vendors in the building. We had 12 presentations and panel workshops for the Afternoon of Ideas, 41 panels or workshops at the Public Library for the Night of Ideas, 9 different performance groups, like whole teams of musicians and dancers and things in the atrium, more than 30 small businesses in our small business marketplaces, and over at the Asian, they had 6 panels and workshops, 7 different performances, and 5 mini tours of their new exhibits in the galleries. So it was really quite the event. And I'll just finalize with it really takes a village. It isn't about me. It's about this whole organization. Night of Ideas is not Michelle's party. It's everybody's party. Making that clear. More than 130 staff members work this event, and it would not occur without them. Their dedication, their positive vibes, their adaptability to change as things always change over a 9-hour marathon like this, and their welcoming spirit to all who came through is what made this a success. So thank you.
Merci beaucoup. All right, in closing, our final presenter is Naomi Jelks, Main Library Manager, with a report on the Main Library's 30th birthday.
Thank you, Michael. I'm Naomi Jelks. I'm the Main Library Manager, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the Main's 30th anniversary. Next slide. So 30 years under the Nautilus, so I can't believe the Main has been here in this current location for that amount of time. This month, we're doing lots of celebrating of the Main's 30th and honoring the building's past while looking forward to the future. The current Main Library opened its doors April 18th, 1996, following a major civic effort led by citizen groups, private donors, and city leadership, funded by $104.5 million in bond funds and $22 million in private donations. The project was the largest public-private partnership in San Francisco's history at the time of its completion. Next. On April 14th, I had the honor of sitting on a panel entitled Main Library, Past, Present, and Future. The panel consisted of San Francisco Public Library leaders from the past and present, talking about the momentous achievement of opening the new Main Library in 1996 and what they foresee for the future. The panel consisted of Stephen Coulter, formerly Library Commission President, Dale Carlson, former Chair of the Library Foundation, along with myself, Dolly Goyle, Chief of Public Service, and Michael Lambert, who's the city librarian. It was a great program. I learned a lot. And I'm going to share a little bit of what I learned in 2 slides in. Next slide. I'm sorry, go back to that slide. I did want to point out that these images represent the past, present, and future. So the first slide depicts a young person who, opening day at the Main Library in the Children's Center, reading a book, very enthusiastic about being here, sticker on the face, go Yankees. I'm sorry. The middle slide, I believe might have been from year 2 of NOI, and which is our present, and the future, gotta have the Star Trek card. And so that card represents one of our newest library cards, celebrating Star Trek, Starfleet Academy, which is set here in San Francisco. Next. Because April is also National Library Week, we had some fun last night with a program entitled Quiet Please, Librarians on Film, featuring film clips and a talk by librarian and historian Jim Van Buskirk about how librarians, including SFPL librarians, have been depicted in Hollywood over the years. Depictions of librarians in feature films include stereotypical tropes, as well as positive portrayals. This presentation by former SFPL librarian Jim Van Buskirk offered carefully selected scenes providing perspectives on the image of librarians, humorous and poignant, throughout a century of cinema. The first image is Goldie Hawn in Foul Play. The middle image is Betty Davis in a film entitled Storm Center, which has to do with censorship of materials in the 50s. And the last one, Parker Posey, Party Girl. Next slide. This year marks the anniversary of the James C. Hormel LGBTQIA Center here at Maine. One of the things that I learned on the panel that I sat on is how integral the affinity centers were in the creation of this building. And the Hormel stands out significantly for the really heroic efforts the community took to ensure that there was funding available so the center could be built. Especially coming out of the AIDS crisis, folks in the community really wanted to be seen in our public libraries. And so from the inception of this building, we've been about supporting diverse communities. And, you know, that's kind of our foundational work here at the Maine, but within our branches as well. So this year, on the 18th, the Hormel Center will have a fantastic party. They have a program slated to take place in the Hormel Center from 3 to 5, where they'll look at past and present, those folks who helped create the center, as well as library staff who helped over the years in supporting the programming, the archives, the collection of the Hormel Center. Next. So one of my favorite programs for this month is entitled What Lies Beneath the Maine? Civic Center's Cemetery Origins. So I didn't know for a while that there was a cemetery under the Maine. But this panel is going to happen, it's a virtual program. It's going to happen on April 21st at 6 p.m. And on that, it's going to feature several people who are going to be talking about the history of the Gold Rush graveyard and the burials that are underneath the main library. So journalist Beth Weingarner, historian Woody LaBounty, and cemetery researcher Alex Ryder will be in attendance. So I plan on popping on. Next slide. Also this month, make our anniversary your anniversary. To celebrate our 30th anniversary, the library invited 9 couples to hold their wedding ceremonies with the rows of books as the backdrop to their nuptials in an effort to bring joy to the community we serve. Libraries are a place that people keep close to their hearts, and we feel incredibly honored to be the site of these weddings. San Francisco Drag Laureate Persia was one of the invited guests who officiated, the wedding ceremonies. And she's quoted as saying, "Libraries are a magical place for imagination, a place for love, and what better place to get married than here at SFPL." Happy anniversary. Next slide. So in closing, I love this picture. This photo depicts some of the architects who helped make this building possible, and everyone's favorite, Mayor Willie Brown in the center, as usual. Well, thank you, commissioners. Thank you for listening to me and sharing this presentation.
Thank you, Naomi. And in closing, it was an honor to serve on the panel with former Commission President Steve Coulter and Commissioner Dale Corson. And it just really reinforced for me what an honor and a privilege it is to serve as a public servant with the San Francisco Public Library, and the fact that we are standing on the shoulders of giants, literally. And the message that they imparted on us during that panel is to never take for granted what we have and to maintain our vigilance always in protecting this institution. And that closes the City Librarian's report.
Thank you very much for the presentation. We will now open public comment on this item. As a reminder, please limit your public comment to this specific agenda item. Public comment is now open in Correct.
Peter Warfield, Executive Director, Library Users Association, Library Users 2004 at protonmail.com, and P.O. Box 170544, San Francisco, California, 94117-0544. First of all, your book today has an extra page for library 30th anniversary, and the one that I got in the mail on my subscription does not have that. The main library 30th anniversary goes straight to 30 years under the Nautilus. And that's one of the reasons that I do get what's in the back of the room, even though I'm a subscriber, as it were, to the agenda packet. The main library, as you may not know, opened to tremendous controversy. The promise was growth in space for the books for 20 years, and it apparently required hundreds of thousands of books. The library tried to keep secret what happened, but hundreds of thousands of books were dumped, gotten rid of. It was a huge scandal and ended in an article by Nicholson Baker in the New Yorker magazine of October, I believe, 14th, 1996. Despite the lack of space for even the books that it had, the library has reduced space for materials, for example, by getting rid of an entire wing, I would say, the whole western front of the library that faces City Hall, which had magazines, historical magazines and bound magazines, completely gone and replaced by offices that, as far as I'm concerned, could be provided in any office space or storefront or any place not necessarily in a library. The Night of Ideas, once again, I think, was a disappointment with respect to the programming for AI. There was programming regarding the positives of AI and lots of discussion about that, and very little to none about the downsides, which are very, very serious, as stated by leaders of the AI business itself. So a panel at 7:30 at the library, Lighting the Future, Ethical AI for the Next Generation. What's ethical AI? There was talk of we, me, to do this, that, and the other thing, but we are not part of managing the growth and the tremendous investment to make money from AI. Another one was, will AI solve the climate problem? No mention of how it will do that.
Is there any additional public comment on this item? Seeing no further requests for comment, public comment is now closed, and we move to commission discussion on item number 6.
Both of the presentations, I just feel like, represent how much creativity goes into all of these moments of celebration, whether it's to celebrate individual branch, which is the mains, I know it's not a branch, but this unit, or to celebrate kind of these cultural moments where we're showing up, I feel like, in the city as the destination, which is so cool. And I just want to commend both of you and your teams for the creativity that you guys just continue to bring. I mean, even, I think it was 2 commission meetings ago, or maybe it was in January, we were talking about all the work that was going on in February to celebrate different cultures. And I just think all of these teams, your teams, continue to push the envelope on interesting, culturally cultivating experiences that are free, and it's just incredible. And I want to commend and thank you guys for your hard work and just leadership through all of this, because I think it's very cool. I feel like not many institutions can stand up every month and talk about all the unique things that we're doing, and thank you, because it's incredible work.
Thank you, Commissioner. I want to shout out the my favorite panel that I saw at Night of Ideas, which was on the 6th floor, and it was an astronomy program. And so I love astronomy, and although it was disappointing that it was a rainy evening, so we couldn't really stargaze, the two presenters, they just rolled with it. They had footage from Artemis 2, and really every hour that I was up there, there were 30 to 40 people listening to the presentation. So I really love that part about working Night of Ideas, where we work our hardest to make sure things are going to come off a certain way, but then Mother Nature calls and you just kind of have to pivot, right? And I think that's the way large events are. You just have to kind of roll with it. And I think Michelle is an excellent example for not only Night of Ideas, but all the higher profile programs that she and her team lead, to just roll with it and kind of figure out as we go, communicate, support each other, so we can provide these excellent programs to the public.
I think you have ended our meeting on the perfect note. It is all about the people. And the more seamless it appears, the more hard work you know went into it. And I commend every one of you. So I'd like to end on that note. Thank you all, and the commission meeting is now adjourned.